Hello, welcome to the morning talk with the Artist Forge. I am not Nicole York, but you probably already knew that by the awful sound and the beard. So I'm going to bring everybody else on board, and we've got Bassam Sabah and Kat Ford Coates and Becca Bjorky. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
I'm trying to have all the Nicole energy this morning, and I'm drinking all the coffee, and I'm taking all the Adderall, and let the keys stay focused, and just get this.
Da da
Okay.
da 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 da.
So we had a late night last night with that discussion on AI, and I don't know. I know Kat and Bassam, you got to stop by a little bit, but I loved it. I thought we had a great conversation, Becca. What were your thoughts coming out of the whole thing? Even bringing your dad up, like what was your thought of it?
I thought it was fun. Yeah, like I think we hit kind of some cool, I don't want to say esoteric points, but like we got into some good stuff. Like I didn't know what direction it was gonna go, like what the general vibe was gonna be. So it was a fun one.
Yeah,
I really
like
seeing your dad.
Yeah.
And just kind of like hearing his hearing his insights, of course, but just like, the thoughtfulness into, the questions and the answer process. I thought where it was like what a cool way to kind of dig a little bit deeper beyond, just like the superficial space of it. So yeah, no, I dug it.
Yeah, I'm glad
was,
I got hold of
I
it.
was just thinking what it would be like for my daughter to invite me to join one of her groups. I mean, that must be fun for a guy, for somebody to join their kids, and that was fun. And by the way, the discussion was really good, and it's kind of typical discussion, where people fall and which side they fall when something new comes up. But the thing that is different this time, from the comments that were made, is I guess the danger behind it all. A human being screwing it up. That whole subject of getting AI getting out of control because of humans behind it is probably the biggest difference compared to other technologies and other evolutions over the past, whatever, 100 years, right? Like from film to digital. There wasn't, maybe I'm wrong, but there wasn't really that much behind it in terms of what can go wrong, compared to AI. I thought that was what the main difference is.
Yeah, I like the conversation about, the art side of it, which is great, but it's also very kind of like instant reaction to what's going on. Oh, this new Mid-Journey, this Dolly, right? But AI in art starts to really get into broader topics, right? It's not just art. It's about the psychology behind the artificial intelligence itself. And I thought it was just really interesting to see, comments coming from purists and the folks that are not Team Robot, and then you've got Team Robot, and it's all just kind of, I think, from what I was gathering, like your own perspective and security in what you do, right? So if you think that AI is going to put you out of a job, it probably will. But if you're like, I can harness this and use this for good instead of evil, then I think it will serve a great purpose to a lot of us. It's just how we're going to use it in the workflow, right? So it was a really, really cool discussion. And it was great to see, Renee and Kelly in the audience and have Kate Woodman there, and like just the good crowd of Dennis was great, talking from his side. I thought it was a really, really good conversation. So I'd love to do more of those.
And one last point, another interesting point, which I never really thought about much, is the whole subject of what are we giving them? What are we giving them? The information that's being gathered. I mean, it's going to be worth billions eventually to whoever wants to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
I never really looked at it that way, and that was eye opening.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see. So anyway, if you're out in the audience and Justin is saying good morning, Justin. If you're out in the audience and you want to take a look at that conversation, you can go to the YouTube channel, the Artist Forge YouTube channel, and the replay should be there. You should be able to watch that anytime you want. Put it on repeat, download it, commit it to memory. I think it would probably behoove you to do something like that. If nothing else, you get the dulcet tones of Kevin Bjorky. and he will just lull you into a VFX dream. So what's going on with you guys? How's your week been? Great. Moving on. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been weird for everybody else. And good morning, Erica. Erica's been all over the place too. I'm looking at her on the Portrait System podcast right now. Big banner. Good morning, guys. What have you guys been up to this week? Has it just been in motion all week? How have you guys been? I felt like I haven't had a free second all week.
Yeah. I've been doing nothing but retouching for the past few days, and I love it, and it's driving me berserk, if you know what I mean, right? I absolutely love it because I have this string of really, really good shoots that I'm excited about retouching and preparing them for the client and so on. And yet there I'm sitting and thinking, what a total waste of time, right? And still caught in that love-hate relationship with retouching.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I spent most of my week retouching as well. I've got a couple of shoots, but I also took on a couple of jobs doing retouching, one for a brand out west and then one for a portrait artist. And I was like, oh, I'll be able to fly through these. I'm not going to make a career like Dennis made a career. I'm not efficient enough, but I spent a lot of time retouching, and I don't normally do that. It's been a weird week. How about you, Kat?
I realized yesterday that I have not picked up a camera since the end of July.
What?
Wow.
Yeah. And it's been kind of cool, but also a little maddening. Like, I won't do it unless it's on my terms, you know? And so I've got a couple of shoots this weekend. Yeah, but I've just been kind of, we launched a contest campaign this week. And so I've just been kind of working on the infrastructure for that, and then managing all the minutia since, we opened the doors or whatever, and, adding people to projects and email workflows and all of the things. So that's been my primary focus, but I'm ready to go to Arizona. Like, ready to go.
I've got this, like, when you're a senior in high school and it's the last month, you're just like not doing shit, right? And you're just kind of like, it's coming.
Listen to you last month. That was like my entire senior year.
I was a high performer, Kat. I hung out with you burnouts, but I actually did care about the future. Yeah, and look how we wound up. Yeah, that worked out. So
gotta take that time to rest, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I've got this thing where I know that I'm heading out to Arizona in a couple of weeks, and I'm just in this, I don't want to get this project started now because I've only got 2.5 weeks. It's so stupid. But I'm like floating into that, and I'm thinking about more things like I should probably get a haircut, or I should probably do laundry before I head out, or, I'm kind of stuck in that mode of senioritis. But yeah.
I've been organizing my house.
Good.
Yeah.
Becca, speaking of organized chaos.
Why? I guess I've kind of been actually like maybe the Illustrator equivalent of your guys' retouch hell. I've been like trying to wrap up this project, and I have spent so long just like looking at the colors of it, and like playing with the colors and not actually making any progress for days, just like this or like this or like this, and just wasting my life, and then suddenly discovering what the color needed to be, and then it's done, right? And it's stupid. It's very stupid. So I'm like bouncing between that and then doing some writing, and then I have some other stuff, and then it's like I'll discover some rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, I'm excited and I want to go make this thing just for me, but I shouldn't do that because that's irresponsible, but I'm going to do it anyway, and then I'm going to feel guilt, and then I'm going to fall asleep.
Stick it to the man and then go to bed.
But the man is So right there with you, senioritis crew. Just what is happening?
Just kind of cruising. I'm kind of getting used to these Friday talks where Nicole doesn't show up, the kids take over,
Sticking
and
to the man.
yeah, I'm sticking it to the man. Yeah, take that, Nicole. All right, so if you're in the audience and you're sitting here, obviously we don't have a specific topic for the day. We're just going to kind of shoot the shit. If you have a question that you want any of us to address, just throw it in the comments. Let us know, DM us, send us an angry email, something. Just get a topic to us, and we'll kind of toss it around the room. So, you know, one of the things that I've been doing, kind of like you, Kat, is I've been working on the systems. We talked about this last week, working on some of my systems and putting it all together. But after the chaos of this week, right, I used to be a very regimented calendar, everything in time blocks and color coded and all that. And I've fallen off that wagon totally and completely. And so I've been trying to do it digitally. That doesn't work either. I need shit to cross off and sketch around. And I started doing that again, and I realized I was just blocking off the time that I spent this week retroactively. Where did I spend my time? Where did I do this? So rather than planning it, I was reviewing it. I waste a lot of time during the day. I waste a ton of time, and I didn't realize how badly I wasted time until I started writing it down. And it's kind of like, oh, I'm going to keep a food journal. I didn't eat that much except for, you know, and I'm like, oh, I wonder why I had 4,700 calories today. So I was kind of doing the same thing with time, and I realized how much I waste. And that was a real eye opener, because when you sit around and you feel bad for yourself and you're like, nothing's getting done, or I can't move forward on this project, and you know, I just don't have the time to do anything. And then you look and you see that you sat drinking a cup of coffee, looking at TikTok for 45 minutes. Well, that's 45 minutes that could have been doing anything, picking colors on fabrics, Becca. It could have been anything. But I realized it's probably a good 3 to 4 hours a day that's just this weird dead time that I'm not watching television. I'm not doing some Netflix thing. It's just floating, just in this gray world. And it's okay to have your brain kind of settle down a little bit. It doesn't have to be go, go, go. But I realized all these excuses and rationales that I make for myself, like, I just don't have time, and I'm busy doing this, and I'm busy doing that. You're not that busy, Matt. You're really not that busy. You're just choosing to use your time inefficiently. So,
and I think there's something to be said for, you know, giving yourself some grace during the day to enjoy a cup of coffee, right? Or doom scroll, like whatever that is for you, like whatever your escapism method is. Like, I don't think that means that, you know, you need to knock it out entirely, because, you know, especially when we're talking about creatives, whether it's photo or illustration or painting or whatever, like, that creativity comes when we're not balls to the wall. You know, like, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's been working on this like creative project, but has a day job. And he's put like the last like week and a half into every day, like working through these assignments and all of these things. And like, we were on the phone, and he was just like, you could hear it in his voice. And I was like, have you thought about maybe, I don't know, taking a fucking break? Like, just step away from it for a minute and go explore, or go, you know, just step outside of this focus just for a second. Even, you know, and by second, I mean, you know, like half hour, afternoon, whatever, to just breathe and exist and not hold yourself so stringently to this thing. And the next day, you know, he texted me and was like, I didn't realize I needed permission. Like, holy shit, thank you. And like, he'd gone out and like gone and got some coffee, went to a park, and, you know, watched some dogs play, and said when he got home, like, he was able to just kind of sit down, and it flowed, it came, it did the thing. And, you know, the whole time he was just so ardently like, must get this done, and just hitting wall after wall. So yes, reviewing how you're actually spending your time versus the way you want to structure it to see where those gaps are, right, is definitely valuable. But not being so stringent with yourself that you don't actually get to exist, because the whole purpose of being in whatever business you are is so that you can do what you love to do. And if you
Mhm.
make that something you hate, that makes it a little tougher.
Yeah, I think for me, you're absolutely right? And giving your brain that chance to rest and recharge and become creative again. I used to, Anita Watkins used to tell me, she's just like, just go outside and hug a tree. Just go in the forest and just hug a tree. Just get out there and not be in front of your computer, right? And it's amazing what a quick walk like that will do. I think for me, there was a cognitive dissonance between what I thought I was doing and what I was actually doing. And that was the big surprising part, where I'm just kind of like, oh, I've got this stuff in the home renovation in the studio, and I was filming a commercial this week. And, of course, I had a month to do that, and I waited until the last, 48 hours before it was due to do it. But it's like all of these things that I was like, oh, I'm really busy. When I looked at it and I stepped back for a second, I said, I can address all of this in about 2 hours if I just sat down and focused. And instead of keeping it on the to-do list and I'll get to it and I'll get to it and I'll get to it. So it was just a big kind of like, yeah, it's just a wake up call of like, all right, how can we make this better? So anyway, it was a time thing. But I saw, Becca, you were kind of doing this. Does that resonate?
Yeah, I mean, the permission thing is interesting. Like, I'm Matt, just far away and with longer hair. And I definitely waste a lot of time in my day. I know a lot of that is just because I'm listening to my daughter tell me a 30-minute story about unicorns having a war, or whatever. There's other stuff, but I don't give myself that permission to go hug a tree or to go relax and step away. I don't even give myself permission to sleep. I have guilt over sleeping because I'm like, oh, I could be doing the stuff that I didn't do while I was doing the other useless stuff during the daytime, like a normal person. And I guess I obviously I'm not alone here. Matt's doing it. Matt's random friend is doing it. Matt Bassam's doing it. It's like we have this hustle kind of mentality, but then we're still wasting the time anyway. So how the heck do we stop?
Maybe you don't.
Well, that's what I'm doing now. I'm still alive.
But for me, there's a difference between, I totally agree with Kat. When it comes to creating something, when it comes to doing something new where you need that space to think, it's kind of a process that you have to go through. It's to me, I find it easy to give myself the time, right? It's almost like I have a good excuse because I'm creating something, right? My issue is with when you have to do the stuff that's got to be done, right? It's just tactical stuff. It's not creative. It's just you got to do it. Right. And that's where I waste so much time. I'm jumping from one thing to the other. So the idea here is if I could just focus on that, get it done, right, I'll have a heck of a lot more time for the creative stuff, whether it's related to the art itself or whether it's creative related to the business itself. Right. But it's the time wasted. I get up at 6:37 every morning. And when you really look at what I do, my morning routine, I probably don't get any work done till 10:30, 11 sometimes. And I have a good reasons for that, right? But there's 3 hours in a day that I really lost. You know what I mean, right? So it's more the chicka that you got to keep going as opposed to the creative stuff that I struggle with finding time. Not finding time, I struggle with wasting time. Sorry.
I equate it to my laundry pile. That sucker sits on top of the dryer until it's dirty again. Because I just don't want to. I just don't want to. And I'll just go and I'll pull a shirt and be like, okay, cool. I could just take the 7 minutes it would take to go and fold everything and put it in a drawer, but then I won't remember which drawer I put it in. And then I'll spend 20 minutes like, where is this thing? And so I just leave it on the dryer. That's my process now.
You know where everything is, though. Yeah. That's the important thing. Yep. You made that point about needing permission, and it kind of struck home, and I wanted to think about this for a little bit while you guys were talking. And I realized that there's this big part of me. I think it's because there's a certain amount of isolation being out here and not around a big creative community because it just tends to be I'm out in the sticks, right? So I don't have the New York vibe or the LA vibe or the Asheville vibe. And I think there's
You are the Asheville vibe, Matt.
that's all I am. I belong in North Carolina, I think. I realized that I was just looking for someone to be like, no, you did enough. That's plenty. Like, you did fine, move on. Instead, I'm like, it's not done yet. I have to finish this task even more than finished. I have to do more. And I'm just kind of waiting for someone to be like, hey, dude, like, chill, like, it's fine, it's done, move on, go to the next thing. And it's really strange how not being around creatives like you all the time, how much I fall into my own little head, right? So when I'm around a creative community, and I think this is why I'm looking forward to going to Arizona so much, I get recharged with this energy of people doing things and their ambition and their growth and all of the excitement that goes around that you can't help but get infected by this amazing positive flow of energy, right? And not having that in your daily support system is difficult. It's easy to fall back into the comfort that you have, or it's easy to fall back into excuses. But when you're surrounding yourself with people that are supporting you and pushing you and want to see the best for you, it's a whole different crowd and a whole different feeling than the people that are just kind of like, yeah, it's hard, I'm not doing that great. And, it's a total mindset shift. So I think I'm finding that I need you guys to move up here is really what I'm saying. And we can put tents on my front lawn and we can do this every morning in person. We can do yoga out by the lake and I'm happy to bring you up. What do you think? This is all for me. I'm being very selfish.
How much whiskey is involved with this?
So the little known fact, I have a whiskey fountain. I literally have a fountain that you pour handles of whiskey into and it bubbles out like a wedding.
But is there whiskey in the fountain?
And is it involved in the yoga?
That's
I mean, it has to be, right?
And
Yeah.
would we have to install bathtubs and do like sheet
Oh,
no,
rocking
man.
and all
Are
that?
you kidding me? No, nothing is getting done because of this, right? So my house project would have been done in about a week and a half, but no, it's been since March because whiskey.
No, actually, it's funny you ask, Bassam. A buddy of mine, he and his partner bought a house, and they moved in, and they had a house party, and part of the backyard had a pretty steep incline, and he needed a bunch of rocks moved, so he waited and he had a keg, and it was all fun and games, and then he decided to make a contest to see who could throw rocks the farthest down the hill. And I was like, did you really just invite 40 of your closest friends to do your landscaping for you? Is that what happened?
Smart guy. Sneaky smart guy.
We can do all sorts of that. I'll turn into a redneck Olympics and we can do all sorts of stuff outside. Feel free. Yes. Sarah, are we invited or is it only for panelists? I heard whiskey. Hell, everybody's welcome. If you got a paintbrush and a hammer, I can put you to work. It's fine. You won't be sober doing it, but we'll get it done.
Sarah will carpool, just drive my way and then we'll continue down. You got to come this way anyways. So there you go.
Health insurance is required and you must sign a waiver. It's like a model release, but slightly different.
But your life is on the line. It is what it is.
But think about it. If we actually do that and create real shit, it would be unbelievable though. We could make lots of money. Think about it. Cheap living and multiple creatives just knocking it out of the park.
I think we've outlined our first retreat, you guys.
Yeah, it's the first retreat.
I'll take
a shovel.
The communism though with the retreat. That's my ulterior motive.
We're all gonna be swearing down capitalism by the end of the day. Thanks, Becca. There we go. I'll make sure I have my sickle ready.
I mean, even not so extreme. Before I moved to Washington, so one of the hardest transitions when I moved and left California was leaving my people, which was hard. And we would have what we would call productivity parties. And like a lot of my friends like weren't necessarily artists, they worked in tech, you know, they take their work home or they just either still in school. And we would just literally sit around and like all on our computers and like there it wasn't a whiskey fountain, but you know, have a couple beers or whatever and have some like crappy junk food. And we would just sit. Sometimes we'd crack jokes, sometimes we'd talk, but we would just channel each other's productivity. There's a term for it. Parallel play is what it is. And where you just need someone to parallel that behavior for you, and your ability to get into that flow and that focus suddenly shoots through the roof. And especially since COVID, I feel like that's just stopped happening for a lot of people. Like we're just not putting ourselves in those productive environments in a way that would really benefit us.
Well, you're absolutely right. I think there's been so much change in normal human behavior, right? And not to go down that road too far, but is anyone ever going to blow out candles on a birthday cake again, right? Or we just like that was just something we all did, and I don't think anyone's ever going to do that again. And so I think there are, you know, when we're looking at the group dynamics, I think that's something that's really, really important. I realize how much I miss that from my corporate days or from traveling when I go to conferences and whatnot. I really do miss that because it's that flow that everybody's in, the parallel play, as you called it, Becca, that, you know, is really a tangible thing. I found that every time I get together around a group of people. I tend to be relatively introverted, but it's that recharge, like you can't help but feel good about it. And you know, just bring it back into your own world.
But isn't that part of the attractiveness and the benefits of common workspaces like WeWork and such, right? It's exactly what you described, Becca, but in a business, multiple, you know, it's not just necessarily, you know, artists getting together. It's a bunch of different professionals and same feeling, same outcome, I guess, and same benefits.
I would say too, though, that one of the purposes of like the co-working spaces or being inspired by others in the productivity space is the desire for connection and celebration, because we don't allow that for ourselves when we're isolated, right? Like when you're with other people, you want to share good things. Mm-hmm. And so it's not necessarily bragging, right? But it's like, hey, I closed this really killer deal, or I got to sleep in today, whatever that is, right? You use that as a means of connection, but the same can be true for the opposite, right? Like misery loves company. But you'll notice like in co-working spaces and at parties, like they become the downer. And now all of a sudden they're like, get out of here. You're not bringing good vibes to my chill. So it's that connection. So when we're isolated, it's more about like that punishment versus permission, right? Like, no, I'm not good enough yet. I'm not done yet. I haven't accomplished all the things. But when you're in a space with others who are in motion with you, it's like, hell yeah, I sent that email. Booyah, right?
You're not wrong. It's a strange shift that kind of I've noticed. What gives me energy and what doesn't, you know, and how can I adjust my environment so that I'm getting more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff, right?
Well, I think that's why social media is such a powerful tool, right? Because people who are typically isolated for whatever reasons, you know, family, career, location, it gives them the ability to connect. And then you find people that are like 47 feet deep in ridiculousness on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok because they crave that connection because they don't have it in whatever way they need or desire at the time. Or they do and they're just avoiding it. So yeah, like, oof.
Becca, you look like you were about to say something. I can see the wheels turning. Now that the hair has been cut, I can see more of the wheels.
That's why I got the bangs, so my face gets quieter. I'm just thinking a little bit. So my dad mentioned this yesterday in our talk about the evolution of social media towards recommendation media, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with this concept at all. But essentially, like social media filled this kind of necessary void, and it was a very social environment, if we can call it an environment. It was an social ecosystem where it was us and our connections and our friends individually, and that was how we built our MySpace top 8 and our Facebook friend lists and our
Tom
followers.
was my first friend.
Right. But then you have the rise of the influencer, right? These people who we want to feel like we are their friends or they are our friends, and we don't actually have any close connection to them. And then we have the introduction of these AI algorithms by these large companies that are harvesting our data. And now we're living in this world of social media. When it's not social, we're interacting with what a robot or, an algorithm thinks that we want to interact with. And it's suggesting things for us. It's not actually the content directly from our social circle. So the social element is missing. And I wonder if that decline of that actual individual personal connection is contributing to that lack of that extrovert fuel for people like, Matt, you mentioned, like, what gives you energy? You're not actually maybe getting that same interactive boost because you're not dealing with people.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And this is the reason that I have this love-hate relationship with social, right? Is that I know that it's a necessarily evil for my company. I've got to use it. At the same time, I hate the act of having to do it. And so I'm in this push-pull of, I'd love to hire someone to do it. I can guide them. I just literally don't like to do it because I know what it does to me and my psyche. I think everything that you're talking about is especially on the recommendation media side, is really interesting because I saw a YouTube video. Peter McKinnon, love him or hate him, Peter McKinnon had a video out the other day about how Instagram has totally gone away and now people are moving towards Vero, right? Which is interesting because I created a Vero account in like 2018 or whatever it was, and suddenly it's back on top because you can, have whatever timeline you want and there's no ads and it's just connections and all this sort of stuff. It's this nirvana that we keep chasing in the social world. Inevitably, it changes back to, oh, you gave us your data here. Why don't you take a look at this? And inevitably, that snowball rolls down the hill and gets bigger and bigger. And now it's onto another platform that promises the same thing. But we're all looking for that connection. And I think that's really what it is we're trying so hard to grasp at these connections when we're so separated. We'll use social, we'll find another platform to go to because we crave that interaction. And if we're not getting it interpersonally, how can we do it virtually? If we're not doing it virtually, where do you go from there? But I think we all have to approach it knowing it with eyes wide open, what it is that we're doing on the platforms, how we're giving our time and our information and our data. Becca used the great word harvesting, right? Because that's exactly what's going on. I think for me personally in that world, I love being connected to people all over the country. It's hard when I can't feel that same vibe. You just don't get the same thing on a Zoom. You just don't. You can see expression great, but you just don't get the same feeling. So
certainly not the same as being, next to somebody on a couch, but that's why, even conversations like this are powerful. There are people watching because they're connected to us. We're connected to one another. And that's more than just the algorithm, right? That's like the four of us connecting here and just riffing on whatever. But there are people in the audience that we see, on a weekly basis that we are connected to for whatever reason, whether it's creative aspects, whether it's business aspects, whether it's simply philosophical, because this is more valuable and more powerful as a platform than simply just posting on Facebook.
And I agree with you, but I think, the evolution of that is like what we're trying to do with a retreat, right? There's this, which is great. Getting in the same room together is greater, right?
Well,
and so that's
WPPM, right? A conference, exactly. WPPI, whatever. You do get that in-person connection and you do get that celebration and you do get to be creative. It's all of the things together. Oh, and there's toys, right? They're just benefits after benefits after benefits after benefits to that in-person connection. So when everybody's been strapped to their houses for almost 3 years now, let me out.
What was and I'll ask this to all three of you, what was the last thing that you got from someone in that realm? Meaning, and I don't mean like, some social disease. What I mean is like, what did you like pull from somewhere? You're like, oh, I'm going to use that in my business, or that's a great train of thought from one of those face-to-face interpersonal interactions, whether it's at a conference or, meeting someone on the street. What was the last thing that you took from someone that they gave you that inspiration just because you met them? Does that question make sense? So, for example, Kat, in talking to you about time, I've restructured things better than the way that I was doing it before. I pulled from you, the time management structure on a calendar. It's one of the greatest things that's happened to me lately. What are some of the things that you guys have pulled from others, like your favorite little nugget? It doesn't have to be recent, but it can be any time. Like it was a fundamental shift when you met someone in person. They gave you that fundamental shift in what you were doing.
I would say like working with Johnny gave me permission to experiment more. And that was back in, whenever the last TPM in person was, like not the shootout, but whatever, like he's just got that like crazy bubbly energy that's just like, why the fuck wouldn't you? And I was like, why wouldn't I? Right. But then there are other aspects like talking with who was it? God, don't remember the source. How awful is that? But restructuring like how I offer to be, more inclusionary, by productizing an event, right? And including like for the mastermind, for example, right? I'm hosting a mastermind in Phoenix the day before TPM, and not just like talking and pointing at a dry erase board, but actually like delivering the constructs and the marketing materials and the scripts, allows that to be a more inclusive offer. So people aren't left just kind of winging it based on notes they took. Right. And like being able to deliver on just in a more whole way, that allows people to like actually gain some traction. And maybe prior to a month before that would have just been like, no, I'm just going to teach the material and y'all go fly, be free. Right. But knowing that, I hadn't even thought about including those components in like a complete way for people, even if it's, they want to readjust language or whatever, but being able to deliver that gives people a sense of like, I can finally figure this out. And that felt really good.
Cool. So Sam, Becca, what about
you?
Yeah,
in my case, I really have to go back to 2016. I keep going back to the same event at essentially towards the end of 2016 in the Photo Expo in New York, where I had just kind of taken my retirement from my corporate job, and I was starting to get into the business of coaching and so on, and thinking about photography. And I met Pratik and Bella through a retreat that they had, and they ended up inviting some of us that were there to go to Photo Expo, and I did, and just discovered a whole new world, right? By meeting and being with Pratik and Bella, I got access to people that I would have never got access to had I not been with them. So all the after parties, all the whatever's happening during the day. So I got to meet Sue Bryce in person and chat with her, and I got to meet a whole bunch of people, and Lindsay Adler and you name it. I mean, it was a dozen people that I met and I interacted with that opened up that world for me that I knew existed, but I had absolutely no idea what it's like, right? So everything I've done since has been kind of, being, I don't want to say I'm in that world, but having access to it. And obviously over the past couple of years of being engaged with you guys kind of accelerated things in terms of how wide and varied and what's in there and what are the intricacies of that world. So yeah, that's kind of had a major impact on my second career and my second, I don't want to say second life, but second career. Let's put it that way.
That's awesome, Bassam.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Becca, how about you?
I'm kind of stumped. Like, I'm just
That doesn't
so.
make any of us feel any better. You realize that, right? That doesn't make any of us feel any better. Like you haven't pulled.
Well, I'm largely a hermit, not necessarily by choice. But over like the last couple years have been very, very hermity. And I'm like, when's the last time I even like went out to like some event? It's been a while. But I mean, like even
Your wedding.
Yes.
It's probably a blur, you know.
It's a blur, and then everyone got COVID, and so like, you know, let's not talk about that. But I mean, I like even when I'm working, right, and when I do have to be on set or work with a crew and like actual other human beings, I mean, I am just so interested in other people's ideas anyway, that I feel like anytime I am actively with other people, like I want to walk away with that or from that with something, whether it's completely life-changing, but it just constant influx of information. And I'd like to think that the way that I think about a lot of things is constantly in evolution anyway, because everyone else has cool ideas and thinks differently, and you can always change. And I don't know that I've had really like momentous singular moments that have caused that great shift for me. But I want to constantly be in that state of evolution. That's one thing that I love about working with other people in whatever capacities. It allows for that growth.
Yeah, and I would say even to this conversation that we've been having daily, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever for the last couple of years, you know, there's always little nuggets that we take away from one another or from, you know, audience members when they ask questions or have insight, that allow us to sort of shift our perspective even a little bit on how we move forward in things. You know, again, just circling back to the value of what these conversations, why they're meaningful. Like who cares, right? Who would actually care about what 4 random people across North America actually have to say? We are literally in the 4 corners of the continent, you know, and the value is in those perspectives and the fact that we all do think differently, you know, and that comes to the table with Nicole being able to sort of bring her perspective and keep us all organized like a fucking bag of cats, you know, in such a way that allows us to deliver that value. And we hope that, you know, is valuable for the audience, you know, and how we can start our days, let alone live our lives or lead our businesses. And
you know, it was interesting. You and I were on a call yesterday of other studio owners, kind of like a little mastermind, just kind of get together, a little casual, but we started inevitably talking about business. And there were a couple of things I was like, oh shit, I should write that down. I started making notes, and it's just people slinging stuff back and forth. Here's how I do it. Here's how I do it. And that's the kind of stuff that immediately I was like, I don't want this conversation to end. Keep feeding me information. The more information I have, the more I feel like I make better decisions for myself. And it's not copying anybody. I'm just kind of like, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what's out there, how other people are doing it. I'm just winging it myself the best I know how. And so when I hear other people, one with same struggles, and here they got over it, or like I thought through that problem a little bit differently, and here's how I solved it, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And it comes back to that getting permission count. It's like, oh, I can do it differently. And that's that energy that I really get. And for me, I know you're absolutely right with the virtual side, because what's what we're doing. There's a great power to that. Rather than swimming in the dark, now you've got a whole crowd around you swimming in the dark. And then when you're got a whole bunch of people together at a conference, it's like they're on the shore having a party. Let's go over there, and it gets even better, right? So I think, you know, for me, the energy comes from being with somebody or a lot of people at once interpersonally. Second best is this.
Masterminds are so valuable. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was Jasmine star maybe, and this has been a couple of years since she posted about it, but it's really when it started to like come up on my radar. She's part of some mastermind with like 5 other like
Yep.
big wigs or whatever.
Gurus.
That's like, $25,000 a year. They meet once a month virtually, and then they get together once a year for like their own
Right.
retreat. And like they have to be at a certain level, like you have to be doing more than $1 million in sales, and like, there's all this criteria, but it's super exclusive, but big names in the room. And I was like, I wonder why, right? Like you just think that when somebody is successful, they have their own recipe, they have the magic. And then you're like, oh, because sitting in a room with other people who have like-minded goals, but think differently than every single other person in the room allows everybody to grow. It's a rising tides lift all ships kind of thing. And like those are so powerful because you sit in a room with other people, and that's not to say like sometimes somebody's a little, farther behind you or ahead of you. But at the end of the day, everybody has valuable insight, even if their questions or lack of clarity is the insight, right? Like, because then everybody rises. So yeah, no, I love working with teams and group conversations and that kind of situation just for that fact.
And I think we proved that last night too in the AI conversation, is that a lot of us didn't have any answers. It's all supposition and, preconceived notions of where we think this is all going. But a lot of us are just kind of like, I don't know, could be good, could be bad. I might be a slave to a computer at some point, which I already am. But, they may take over for real, or maybe it'll just be a passing fad like NFTs. Ooh, I just upset a lot of people. So I think, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I like the fact that none of us were experts. We're just all coming at it with different points of view. I was like, wow, I hadn't really considered it like that, or I hadn't really thought about it in this perspective. And I love that aspect of learning. I love that aspect of these types of interactions. But, as we've been talking about face-to-face conferences and getting together and whatnot, I didn't know if I was alone in how I pulled energy from that differently from, the electronic means, right?
I always think it's interesting that when you describe yourself as introverted, whether in behavior or in heart, because you're not, you're very much an extrovert. So like you draw energy from being around other people. Now that doesn't mean that you don't need some solitude to recharge, and to, sort of put the pieces together in your brain, but like you thrive in extroverted situations. So yeah, I thought that was just an interesting piece of the puzzle.
And it feels weird to say that, mainly because knowing me for the past 49 3/4 years, that I do act extroverted, right? There's a certain persona of it's kind of like the cat with the rings and all the necklaces and the big hair and the jeans, right? It's kind of like, there's a little bit of persona there, but left to my own devices, I'm like, I just want to sit in my onesie with footies in a corner and just watch cartoons. Like, that's all I want to do. So yeah, this has been an interesting discussion. But Becca, I see again, there's a lot of facial expressions, man. And I know it's early for you, but I'm going to keep picking on you because I like seeing you laugh. I'm kidding. I'm not going to pick on you. But let's switch topics a little bit. So we've talked about all this stuff going forward, right? Give me, because we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. I'm going to end early, kind of like the cool substitute teacher that's just kind of like, you know what, we're going to end early. I'm not going to keep you after class. So, made Becca laugh. So, one thing in the next 5 minutes that we have, one thing that you're doing over the next year that you're most excited about. Bassam, you can go first. Over the next year, it doesn't have to be something that's due next week, but over the next year, what's your 1 year plan?
My 1 year plan, which is not really a plan, it's more of a direction and a desire, which I need to put in action, and I'm starting to, is to transition from not from doing only photography and videography and all that part of it, and let go of my business slash coaching slash consulting. I don't know how yet. I've talked about one being easy, one being hard, and again, definition of easy and hard can be a bit confusing sometimes. But yeah, that's essentially the direction I'd like to take.
Awesome. Becca, how about you?
So this year's going to be interesting. And I know I've been mentioning it a lot, but my final offspring goes to school next week. And I want this to be incredibly life-changing. And I know it sounds like so negative, you know, like I love my daughter. I love all my children so very much, but I also love autonomy, which I haven't had in a while. And it kind of ties back even to those wasted daylight hours that started today's conversation of like, I will have an 8-hour block every day. How do I evolve with an 8-hour block every day, 5 days a week that I haven't had in like 6 years?
Sleep.
Well, yeah, there is the sleep. But again, that's a waste of time, Kat. I could be doing so many other things if I didn't need to sleep. But I think I actually really very much want to focus some more on kind of technical development for myself. I have been so wrapped up in the work of my work over the last like year and a half straight with no room to breathe. I think I need to give myself that permission to just make things for me and to just level up on a technical level in a way that I haven't really had the ability to do. Like I do try to learn on the job and I absolutely do, but I also just want to like make art. And that's like my real big goal right now is like, I just want to do some stuff that is exciting to me and it's going to be exciting to other people who aren't giving me money necessarily. So then other people will eventually want to give me money. I can do those exciting things. So giving myself that permission and taking that time to actually move forward instead of just being consistently good at what I'm actively doing, if that makes sense, is the goal. And it doesn't have necessarily a specific direction, but I want to do that, if that makes sense.
It does, totally and completely.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you create.
It's
going to be evil. It's going to be wonderful. How about you, Kat?
Mine's boring. Mine's a revenue goal.
I can guarantee your revenue goal is not boring.
No, I mean just my primary focus being a revenue goal. And it's because in the 3-year plan of that is really where like the cool stuff happens, but the revenue goal that I have set is sort of the foundation of those bigger goals, right, coming to fruition. But yeah, so I'm looking at, you know, a $1 million revenue for 2023, and it's exciting, but it's also really daunting. But there are, you know, several streams things are happening in. 2022 has been really tough. Like it feels like, you know, trying to pick up a 400-pound deadlift bar, you know what I mean? Which is often what starting a business feels like too. Yeah, it's just this new phase that's really uncomfortable right now. And so I'm looking forward to at least managing to pick up the bar. Yeah, we'll see.
I love all the desire, and I'm going to end on the same thing and then tie it together. So my thing for the next year is freedom. I want to attain freedom again. And I haven't had that since I first started as a photographer 10 years ago. There was this vibe and energy of I'm doing what I love to do. And I was creating every day. And there was a whole bunch of ignorance in there, but there was also this just desire to create and build. And at some point along the way, I lost that person and their energy. And I became, you know, someone that drives a business, and there's just a lot more to think about. With that lot more to think about, you start to sacrifice the personal the health and the exercise and doing personal projects and making stuff. So Becca, like you were talking about, you've been tied up in the work, and setting yourself free from that work so you can create is big. Bassam, you were talking about, separating out from, other sides of your business. I'm dropping a brand, if not 2 brands, to just release myself of all of that weird burden that sits on your shoulder for no reason. I'm not doing anything with these things. Why keep them around and why feel that pressure, right? And then, Kat, like you, I've got revenue goals because I want that freedom that it brings. I want to be able to do other things. So rather than anything necessarily specific, every decision that I want to make for the next year is tied directly to, is this going to help me attain the freedom that I want? What boundaries do I need to set? What fear do I need to get over to say no, or to turn down jobs, or to, turn down clients that aren't my ideal client? All that shit is scary. But I know at the end, I'll build the good habits to have the freedom and get back to where I want to be. So for me, that's been the focus of, kind of the next year. How do I make that happen, and what comes first? I don't know. I'm just going to try to do the best I can and not collapse in the meantime. But I think everybody that's here, there was one more comment. And it was, I'm assuming that's Gene. Hi, Gene.
No, it's Isaac Alvarez.
Isaac.
Oh, is it Isaac Alvarez?
Of course,
Oh my
it's.
God.
I don't even have to look at Facebook to know that.
What's been a while since we saw you. So yeah, anyway, we're at the end of the hour. I like the casual Friday chat. I'm digging this. Apologies to Nicole for once again defacing this beautiful wall that you've created. And I come along with spray paint and I'm just like, I'm going to put my conversation all over it. But guys, thank you for filling another hour, hanging out with us, just listening in the background. Eventually, one day, we will all get in the same room and be able to feed off of each other's energy. But for right now, this is what we got. So Monday, I think we're getting back on the visual literacy train. Nicole's probably going to talk about something. I think we might be moving on to either composition. Is that what it was? Yeah. So come Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, 6 a.m. Pacific, and then all the stuff in between and far and wide. You figure out the time zones. I'm not going to do it for you. We will see you. Yeah, Kat.
Is it 9 a.m. Monday?
Tuesday,
Yes,
Monday?
Yes. No, it is 9 a.m. We got to finish visual literacy, Kat.
Okay, cool.
I'm like, oh God, what did I do?
And that's a 3-year process.
That's a 3-year process.
No!
All right. Have a great weekend, y'all. Good seeing your faces. And I'll talk to y'all on Monday morning, 9 a.m.
Bye, everyone.
Deuces. Bye, guys.